Hi, I'm B. Morris Allen. Most of you probably know me as the editor of Metaphoricist magazine. You probably haven't seen me either on video or in person before. I like to be more behind the scenes than in front of them. But I was inspired recently by one of my favorite folk singers, a woman named Carrie Newcomer, who has taken to playing a song from her living room every night. And I thought it would be interesting to occasionally, not maybe every day, but to occasionally read one of my stories from my living room. Um, One problem that I face in doing that is that most of my stories are on the dark or even dismal side, and I don't have a lot necessarily that are positive, which is probably more what people are looking to hear at a time like this. Still, I found this one. It's called "Spring and the Arachnodactylist," and you'll hear the explanation in the story. But basically, an arachnodactylist is somebody with long, thin fingers like a spider. It's actually a medical condition which I don't have, also known as Marfan's syndrome. But at one point, somebody had suggested to me that I have it, and it stuck in my mind. I looked into it and found this term arachnodactyly and thought it was kind of fun. Um, it's uh, it's a story that every editor I ever submitted it to said was nice. So hopefully that's positive enough to meet the needs of this current situation. It's also my most autobiographical story, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that at the end. So I apologize for the audio quality here. This is literally my first video recording ever, so I haven't quite worked out all the kinks, and hopefully, if I go on and do more of these, it'll get a little bit more polished. Anyway, here we go. Spring and the Arachnodactylist. Long, slender fingers enclosed the book, captured it in a cradle of skin and bone. The book, a paperback soap opera in the grand style of Doc Smith, fluttered occasionally in a half-hearted way, but made no real effort to get free. Now being read for the third time, it looked brand new, unmarked, the tawdry cover perfect. The fingers, smudged with ink and occasionally cramped from lack of movement, left black smears along the outer edge of each page, but the rest they treated with elaborate care. These fingers had never broken a spine, never dog-eared a page, never carelessly set a book down in a pool of bathwater. The books were insistent about that. Attached to the fingers, a long, slender body was draped lengthwise on an equally long, comfortable couch. While not athletic, the body possessed a perfectly sound constitution, was capable, given no alternative, of hard physical labor. To its pleasure, alternatives were usually to be found, usually reading. This afternoon, however, the favored alternative lacked its usual compelling power. The draw of the tractor beams, the hum of hyperdrives, even the glowing eyes of a startlingly humanoid alien heroine held no attraction against the sunshine from the outside and the light breeze with its scent of outdoors. Sighing in defeat, the young man noted his page, then closed the book and placed it carefully on a convenient table. The book protested to no avail, prosaic cries fading as the pages closed. The table constituted one of three pieces of furniture in this, the inner sanctum. The second was the couch, positioned by the window for the best light, despite the risk of natural distractants. The couch was held in place against gravity lapses by the carefully disposed reading body. The body's legs were raised well above the head to promote comfort and blood flow. Passers-by occasionally marked the unusual display, framed nicely by the central window pane, of thin, fragile feet above the red fabric of the sofa. The more observant noted the small legend pinned on the sofa below that read, "Pale they were and long of foot." An inside joke by a Fred. The feet had long since forgotten the note's existence. Last of the furniture, and placed against the wall, was of course a bookcase. Tall and broad, it was nonetheless overfull of mass-market paperbacks with hardbacks stacked neatly atop it, edges perfectly aligned the way they liked it. Summoned now, the feet lowered themselves reluctantly out of their comfortable frame. The legs, perforce, followed after, and even the hips slowly changed orientation to recognize a new direction as down. The head, conversely, raised on its armatures until it was uppermost. The eyes, pleasant and brown, now closed. Sudden changes were to be handled with caution, the body knew, Rapid motion often led the brain to insist on a sudden showing of kaleidoscope films, and the demands of projection could starve the support infrastructure of power, leading to system collapse. Right, said the body. Outside. Sunshine. Green grass. An opportunity, noted the books, making the best of a bad situation. They put an urgent marker on a thought in the hindbrain and sent it forward for processing. Marlin looked about. Shoes, he thought. Important for podal shielding. Sandals, maybe. Easily removed for a picnic. Have to get food, he thought. He wandered into the kitchen, gathered smoked tofu, a chunk of jicama, a bottle of water. He stuffed it all into a backpack, added a blanket. He returned to the front of the house for his sandals. A book, he remembered, his thought processing completed. Have to take a book on a picnic. He took a paperback from a stack on the hall table. Maybe two. He took a second just to be safe. The books celebrated. At last, lightly burdened by food and blanket, the tall, slouching book transporter left the house. The sunshine was bright but welcoming. Birds sang as they vied for mates. Butterflies fluttered. Flowers bloomed. Marlin set out for the park. Sitting at last in a rose garden, comfortably ensconced on his blanket, he glanced around. A young blonde lay face up on the grass nearby, enjoying the warm sunshine, and he watched as she adjusted her sunglasses. Good way to read a book, he thought. Turned back to his bag. Without warning, sprinklers rose from the ground and began an aggressive pattern of attack. Slowly at first, they began to turn, their spurting jets reaching farther and farther with each click of the mechanism. Shit, cried Marlin, gathering together his bag of comforts. He grabbed his blanket and ran. The blonde, alerted as much by his voice as by the sound of spraying water, leapt to her feet and followed. Shit, she agreed with a smile as they reached the safety of a path. She twisted her neck to look down at the calves of her jeans, struck by a lucky blast. Marlin chuckled. Looks bad, he offered. May need treatment. The blonde smiled at him. She had nice blue eyes, he decided, and the short hairstyle was very flattering. Very damsel in distress. Shall I carry you out or just leave you here and save myself? I think I can walk, she replied dryly. But her smile widened. Just let me lean on your arm. The feel of smooth skin on skin shocked him, drew him out of his shining armor. He opened his mouth, but the words were missing, misplaced on their journey from brain to tongue. The silence grew awkward. Listen, he managed at last, applying brute mental force. I've got a little picnic here, he hefted the evidence. Join me? We could find a dry spot. I've got water, he smiled, in a bottle. She smiled. You're on. She held out a hand. Liz Caleb. He took her hand and shook it. Marlin Svensson, he said. Her hand was warm, he noted, and her grip was firm. Marlin, she smiled. Really? Bastard son of a magician and an ichthyosaur. Her brow creased. But you can call me Spike, he added, fighting off a sudden desire to run home and read. The brow smoothed, replaced by a crinkle-eyed smile, encouraging him to press on. I always thought my parents wanted to name a girl after Marlene Dietrich. She laughed. Courage fueled by the wit of 1,000 pulperos, he led her to a dry-looking oak. You scout for hazards and I'll roll out the... He peered at his blanket, plaid carpet. You're funny, she said, as they sat at last. Spike's rapid repartee, he bowed from the waist. At your service. Comedian by trade, are you? She asked. Professional arachnodactylist, he said, waggling long fingers. Arachno... what? Arachnodactylist. Someone with long, skinny fingers. Like these. He took in her look and added, well, it sounds better than inventory specialist. Something prompted him to add, though that does give me time to read. You are one weird guy, no question about it. So what is it that you read with these long fingers? Science fiction, mostly. A stray thought entered his brain, but he fought off the addendum. Experience had taught that the term fantasy often evoked arched eyebrows in the rapid close of the conversation. Is that what those are, then? She motioned at his open bag and the books that poked temptingly out. May I look? Sure. She peered at the two books. You can't go by the covers, he added quickly, as her eyebrows started to rise, or the titles. So, Thraxus and the Dance of Death is about philosophy, is it? The cover featured a fat man and a statuesque woman in a chainmail bikini, back to back, swords in hand. She put the books down and one slid open with a slick, satisfied sound. It's actually very funny, he said weakly. Unable to stop for some reason, he added, "The author is a serious novelist, and the chainmail bikini is a joke." He brought his tongue under control at last and trailed off. No point, he thought. Back to his room alone to read. In the light breeze, pages riffled with a curiously contented sound. There was a library, he thought on the way home, a chance to visit the relatives. "I'm more of a music person myself," she replied, startling him out of his reverie. "A student now, but a singer someday. Do you like music?" "I do," he said quickly, clutching at the straw before it floated downstream. "Well, I'll sing you something later then." She smiled again and moved closer. "I'd like that," he said, and though tempting alternate universes flicked past his eye and scowling aliens chittered threats from the trees, his long fingers reached out to offer a tentative backdrop. He had to move the books. "Just love," muttered the Vance section in the deserted inner sanctum, "to ruin a good story." Nearby, an M.K. Wren trilogy tilted slightly in a smile. So, that's it. As I said, that's my most autobiographical story. I was living in Portland, Oregon, just off Northwest Burnside. I went up to the Rose Garden in Washington Park there. There was a sprinkler attack. There was a blonde. We did start talking uh, about music and about books. It didn't turn into a romance the way the story suggests, but it was a nice afternoon chance meeting with a stranger that just led to a pleasant day. So anyway, that's as autobiographical as I get. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's been a little bit of a break from all of us looking out the window and worrying about COVID-19, etc. If I do more of these, I'll try to get the audio and the video a little more polished. But I hope you've enjoyed it so far. Thanks.